So, hey everyone, it's B.A.G or B.A.G or honestly whatever you want to call me, and we are live with Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 2. So, to get right into it, the purpose of this live stream, or this live stream series, because it's going to be more than one by the end of this, is basically talking about whatever gifts or talents that you're sitting on right now. So, to bring up a topic, once upon a time, I was listening to a Bohemian teacher, and he was talking about the richest place on planet Earth. He said that you'll not find it in Fort Knox, you won't find it in whoever the richest man in the world is, you'll find it in the graveyard. And I found that very interesting to say. To make a long story short, his point was that in the graveyard, a lot of what people have, or the ideas rather that they sit on, those are worth way more in gold. Where was I? Yeah, the graveyard is where people end up taking their ideas and things of that nature. And that really hit me sideways. Basically, the whole point of him telling people that was to get people to use whatever they have before their time on the earth is up. Saying that something along the lines of everyone, when they wake up in the morning, has the same amount of currency in terms of time. Because we all spend time, you know? And with that in mind, it all comes down to what we spend our time on. Some of us, you know what? Just so I can avoid straw manning here, me, in my case, I can spend time on distractions, can spend time on entertainment, or, can spend time on that idea that really I was brushing off for years and years on end. And in my case, it wasn't until, I want to say, technically 2 years ago at this point, where I finally gave myself that ability to stop working on all these other things and actually start working on the thing that I wanted to. And that's really what I want to convey to whoever's listening to this right now, is that whatever your idea is that you've been sitting on, maybe someone told you it was stupid, maybe maybe you yourself don't even see the value of it, it's probably maybe even a silly idea. It's worth trying. It really is, because how many people have already went to the other side, unable to do whatever it is that they wanted to do, go to a job that they hated, sat there, endured whatever it is that they endured, that they really didn't have to. They could have put their stock in themselves and just launched forward with whatever idea they had, and they didn't. And, to go back to myself, in the process of just freeing myself from what I thought I had to do in order to bring money in, I learned a lot. I actually learned a lot about the things that I wanted to learn. And one of those things is that whenever you're starting something new, it's almost terrifying. Like the excitement, the anticipation, it can freak a person out. But when you get to that mountaintop, so to speak, it is one of the greatest feelings in the world. In fact, that is why my avatar for this channel is Hinata at that moment in Haikyuu. I won't spoil it for those who either haven't seen Haikyuu or haven't got to that moment. But thankfully, also that sports anime, you can definitely put a screenshot of it up, and 90% of the time it's not something that is necessarily a spoiler. Not saying, okay, antics about that another time, right? But in any case, it was just like that mountaintop moment. And, all things considered, when it comes to media in general, I find myself not exactly relating to a lot of characters, with the exception of Hinata in Haikyuu. And that's also part of the reason, or rather, let me say, that's the reason for that is because of that 2 years that I allowed myself to actually learn what I wanted to learn and do what I, wanted to do. And so when it all came together, when he got to that mountaintop moment, it felt really good because that was something that I myself was going through at the time, just learning, fumbling, and doing all sorts of stuff along the lines of that. And so, in also, no, I'll keep on that point for a little bit more. It was something else, and growth is so fun to experience. It's very painful at the same time, but it is one of the most rewarding things in the world that you can achieve physically here on the earth. How do you say? For the longest period of time in my life, I was a fighting game player. And one of the things that fighting game players love to do the most, aside from playing fighting games, is the feeling of growth. Doing something you couldn't do before, or maybe beating an opponent you couldn't beat before. That is, to a fighting game player, the best thing in the world. And it can hook you. It really can just hook you. And the best thing that I've learned in my life is that feeling is not relegated just to fighting games. It's actually in everything. And so, with that in mind, to go back to why, the avatar is Hinata, is because, in my mind, that is what I hope for. Not hope for, but I plan for everyone who comes to this channel to get that mountaintop-like moment where they, look back and they do this one thing. And this one thing is something like, how do you say? It can be so innocuous, right? It's something that everyone would normally just not even notice. It could be just, how do you say? Okay, here's an example. I think it was last month. Was it last month? Yeah, last month, City of the Wolves, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves had an open beta. And in my experience in playing fighting games, the one thing that I constantly try to avoid doing is playing characters who have to anti-air with a motion input, because it's very difficult to do. For those who don't know, if you want to get a visualization of it while not doing it yourself, in order to do a motion input, you go forward, down, down, forward on your analog stick or D-pad, and you have to do that very quickly when your opponent is in the air in the middle of a match with no prior heads up to that moment. And to make a long story short, I purposely picked charge characters or characters with really good anti-airs that I don't have to think about that situation because I don't want to do it. But City of the Wolves was a moment where I pushed myself to do something like that. And despite the fact that it was very small, it was the most rewarding feeling after getting jumped on for like 3 days straight, I think it was, to finally anti-air someone, and then taking it a step further and not just anti-airing them, but anti-airing them with the heavy anti-air, which allows you to combo, and many other stuff that is game specific, but it was great. It was a moment of growth, and even though it was small, my opponents probably didn't think much of it. When I did it, I just wanted to do it again. And, just do it again and do it again. The unfortunate thing is, during a closed beta, or during that closed beta in particular, I did not have the means of accessing training mode. So, figuring out all the kinks to it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very difficult. But it is something that is pretty cool. And So, with that in mind, I'd also like to transition to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was a lot of people, and I'm speaking about myself here included, just have to do. Uh, what did I write down again? We just have to use what we have, basically. I don't want to talk about myself so much, but at the same time, I have no other subject to talk about, so I kind of have to, unfortunately. Um, but even in setting up this live stream, the process is very simple. Actually, it was turn on my PS4 and begin streaming. Thing is, though, I don't want, or I didn't want to just do that. I have a desktop to my right that I'm looking at. Well, I was looking at right now, and in my head, I had put everything on the desktop, OBS Streamlabs, the software. I got everything synced up to my YouTube account, this, that, and the other. It was great. It was grand, and it didn't work. it just didn't work. Apparently, my computer is not powerful enough to actually handle streaming, which is very unfortunate. It via YouTube, like I am now. There are a number of different issues that would prop up from that. One of the biggest issues is the fact that I can't really hear right now what I'm, doing in the game. Actually, if I set up my capture card, I could. Oh, okay. Well, that's something to improve upon in the next time, right? But even then, that actually helps my point out more, is that there's not going to be a perfect start for you to start. For all the information you can get, all the, all the people who can give you advice, the best chance you have to start is the best way that you have to start is by doing absolutely all you can to prepare yourself and then running into a brick wall. Unfortunately, that is the process no matter how hard you try to avoid, because at some point there is going to be something you didn't see and it's going to trip you up for a brief period of time. And depending on if you're the type of person who gets stuck on that thing, maybe that's it. Maybe that's where a person's story could end. But I'm here to say that. Sorry about that. I'm here to say that, not to get stuck up on that. This journey of improvement is not as, what's the word I'm looking for? Not as lax. No, not lax. It's not as, words fail me in order to describe what I'm trying to say. But basically, in order to improve, you have to decide that this is what you want. There is no other way around it, and there's no other way that you're going to get any kind of fulfillment out of life by just trying to play it on easy street all the time. And unfortunately, that is another thing that I can say that I have experience with. Believe you me, if life was up to me, I would have made myself take the easy street a number of different times. But in doing a lot of hard things, I've realized that being challenged and overcoming said challenge is actually something that's really, really fun to do. It definitely doesn't feel like it in the moment it's happening. It really sucks when it's happening, and how do I say, you can't get your head out of the situation, right? The situation just blows. But if you can remove yourself from the pain, if you can just let it all go and take the situation for what it is, I promise you, it's so fun to just overcome a bad situation. It really is. And I also feel that it's very fitting. So someone's gonna question, wait, didn't you plan for most. No, I didn't. I wrote like 4 sentences down, and I'm going right now. But you know, something like playing Naruto, because a theme in Naruto is growth, it's training, it's hard work to an extent. I don't want to overplay this. I had a whole thing yesterday where I was running through the major themes of Naruto, and I was doing my best not to say that hard work is a major theme of it. It is a theme, most definitely, especially with how I have a mute button on my mic. Why didn't I just use that? Anyways, Naruto has to put on the extra effort in order to overcome whatever his problems are, and we'll get a chance to talk about that later on in the game, given Shippuden's story mode. But with that being said, that feeling of overcoming something difficult, a wall being smashed down right in your face, is so fun to experience. Obviously, this is going to be something that a person, how do you say, is going to be, whether you agree or not with that statement, is going to be the kind of the person that you grew up to be, for lack of a better term. I don't know what else to say, but it basically is that. Because, well, again, more about me, is that I used to be a competitor in a lot of different games, particularly anime games. How do I say? Someone riding their motorcycle outside. How do I say? Yeah, just like anime games, like your Yu-Gi-Oh, your Beyblade, and things of that nature. And going head to head against another person and overcoming something that was difficult. Sometimes you just get smoked, honestly, in certain situations. And it's from that pain where you learn, where you grow, where things change about you, and it's really cool. I feel like a broken record. I said that a bunch of times, but I really want to hammer it home to, again, whoever's watching, because the issue that I feel that plagues a lot of people today is convenience. And again, I'm not exempt from this rule. Convenience is a great part of, how, going to video games now, how we experience video games, how we experience anime, how we just experience life at this point in time. But something that has been really putting an impression upon me is that, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a price to convenience. There's always a price to convenience, and you are silently paying for it whether you know it or not. You can pay for it in your health, you can pay for it in your time, you can pay for it some other third way that I haven't thought of yet. But dang, I really wish I remembered where I was going with this. Anyways, the point is that doing difficult stuff is really fun when you get right down to it, and when you actually understand what it is that you're supposed to do. Of course, in that difficulty will come a bit of pain, but take it from someone who's gone through about a lot of pain in his own life, that it's worth it. It really is. In the case of anime fans, though, I wrote this point down, and now that I read it, I don't really think that it's... I'm like trying to think of a good way to say this, where people will understand where I'm coming from, or where even I can understand where I was coming from when I wrote it down. But basically, there's a lot of people in the anime community who, whether they know it or not, are super talented. Whether it be your AMV editors, your artists, you're this, you're that. People who just, well, yeah, this falls under artists, but people who make fan art and things of that nature. Super talented people in the anime community exist all over the place. And, they try to get their feet wet on social media with whatever they do, but the unfortunate reality of social media is that how do I put this into words? The unfortunate reality of social media is just the fact that it's not. Well, the unfortunate reality is that it doesn't always reward hard work. I think people are either coming into the understanding of that right now, that, you know, grinding it out and trying to create your own, for lack of a better term, persona on the platform is just not the best way to go about it. And it's unfortunate. Because a lot of people who are doing really cool things get passed up. Oh, I've been playing this game for 10 years. I've never seen that before. You know, they get passed up by people who are just, maybe they're doing less effort in different areas, right? So if someone is funny or entertaining, that person gets way more attention than a person who is maybe way less attention isn't exactly the way I want to say it, but not as much attention as a person who provides a lot of intellectual information, because, well, it's just not as funny. It's easier to get people's attention via humor than it is to get people's attention with, you know, a college essay, for lack of a better term. But even then, you know, even then, I think that it could also be trying to form the words here to say. Even then, it is a talent on its own to be funny. Sorry, I had to concentrate so I didn't lose. It's a talent on its own to be funny, and even though not a lot of people are rewarded for social media through their hard work, and could still be a good way of finding people out. And so this is another thought process that I've been going through recently is, you know, don't be so anxious to get so big very fast, because that can also lead into very bad results. I don't have a particular example for this, but that's just a piece of advice. Take it or don't. You know, that's all on you. I need to think. It's a skill on its own to be funny, because not everyone is funny, and not everyone's humor is particularly splashable in many situations. But at the end of the day, oh yeah, right. I was talking about social media being a way to find people. Maybe I'll loop back around to that funny thing. I wasn't planning on talking about it, but it can be a good way to find others. Something that I've noticed a lot, especially when you like go back and read some of the hits, you know, the known series that exist today that didn't exist like 20 years ago, 40, 60, whatever number you want to say. That a lot of the times, whatever was a big success was turned down a lot. It was overlooked. It was, you know, just overlooked. I remember the creator behind Bones. I think he was, you know, trying to work out a deal with Bill Gates for his comic. And Bill Gates, at one of their meetings, looked at him and said, "Hey man, I think your character should talk in speech bubbles." And he said, "Why?" "Because Garfield talks in speech bubbles." And that was the moment he knew he couldn't work with Bill Gates, because he couldn't see the art that was in front of him. He only saw another vehicle to, you know, latch off what Garfield had done. And, you know, I'm here to tell you that still exists today. This is something that you can see in the game market, with how things are going with live service games and things of that nature. But, you know, if your artwork, if your craft, if whatever it is that you're doing, humor, because I was talking bad about humor earlier, and uh, humor's necessary. Humor's a good thing. I don't want to put it down by any stretch of the imagination. But if that thing is being overlooked, then that's okay. You know. Um, Again, sometimes you just want to start small. You don't want to start big because being big has its own different kind of problems that need the experience of someone who was going through something for a long period of time can ascertain well. I don't know if you guys happen upon any kind of channel on YouTube that started off pretty fresh, like, exploded in terms of numbers. That's not, built by a company or built by someone who knows what they're doing per se. Just a guy like me who's sitting here, talking to you guys. Those channels, if they ever blow up, they don't really know how to retain the types of viewership that they hope to get, if that makes any sense.